I don't know if you properly moved that motion or not. And there's a bit of back and forth. I've been fair to you guys. I did not see your hand raised. I will bring it back to the point where you can discuss the motion. I think that's where we'll go. Because I think then we can at least talk about the committee business and move forward with that. So we're going to go back. So right now we are at the actual substance of the motion. And Mr. Lloyd, I recognize you. Again, because there's a bit of confusion here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do appreciate you being fair on this, because I believe it would have been a violation of my privilege if we had carried forward with a recorded vote while there were still, in my opinion, members on the speaking list. And I'll just, before I get to the substance of the motion, I just want to, relate Standing Order 116, which 2A, unless a time limit has been adopted by the committee or by the House.
Ms. O'Connell, on a point of order.
Chair, you've ruled that Mr. Lloyd can have his time back, so I would suggest he speak to the motion at hand.
It's not a point
Mr.
of order.
Lloyd, I can't tell you what to say or not, but maybe you can speak to me after about the rules. I just read the rules very recently. Maybe we just move on to the substance of the motion itself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate that. And I believe this is part of the substance of the motion because we dealt with it. But I'll dispose of this very quickly. So, quote, unless a time limit has been adopted by the committee or by the House.
So, Mr. Lloyd, 1 second. We're speaking about the substance of the motion to invite witnesses. This is related to that?
Yes.
Okay. I did hear a point of order from Ms. O'Connell.
My point of order is relevance. You've already ruled on this, so he can't speak to it. He needs to speak to the motion, which is on inviting witnesses.
Sure. Ms. Stancho?
Or anything. So we're debating his motion.
No.
You said that we can debate the motion now.
No, we're debating
The substance of the motion.
the substance of the motion, exactly.
Oh, Ms. O'Connell's motion.
Exactly.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many motions flying around, Mr.
Yep.
Chair. So we're back to the liberal.
So Mr. Lloyd, please be judicious
Motion.
with your language. We're back to the motion. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will say, it was my experience in this committee that members are given a wide latitude to get to the point, and I can assure you that I'm going to be very brief with the point I'm about to make, and we can continue on with doing this debate. Standing Order 116
Point of order.
says, hey, thank you for...
Point of order, Ms. O'Connell.
Relevance, Mr. Chair. It's interesting that the Conservatives don't want to speak about inviting Michelle Rempel-Garner and two witnesses that had a debrief. So my point of order is relevance. If he can't speak to the main motion, he should allow us to vote on it.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. I've also made the same point to Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you. So, 2A, unless a time limit has been adopted by the committee or by the House,
Chair,
the chair of a standing, special, or legislative committee
Chair, he's directly violating your ruling. He made a big fuss about his privilege to speak on the motion, and now he's not speaking on the motion. He made this fuss to be able to debate the motion, and he's refusing to debate the motion. I'd ask for relevance.
I do agree
And if
with
he
Ms.
can't
O'Connell,
get to it, then we should move to
Point
the
of
next
order,
speaker.
Mr. Chair.
Point of order.
I'm not clear which standing order Mr. Lloyd is violating. Perhaps Mr. O'Connell
Relevance.
can
You
be...
have to speak to the motion. Relevance.
Sorry, which
haven't even
number
been
is
given
that?
a chance to speak to the motion. Get getting cut off. I keep getting cut off.
Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd.
Point of order. Just kind of curious. I'm usually not on this committee, and it's been rather confusing since I've been here. I'm just wondering if I could hear what the motion actually is again.
It's been emailed.
I'll read it, Chair.
It's been emailed. It's been shared in everyone's inbox.
I'll happily read it so that the Conservatives know what they're filibustering.
I can read it, Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you.
That in relation to its study of Indian interference, the committee invite the following witnesses: the Honourable Michelle Rempel-Garner, Mr. Jaskaran Sandhu, Mr. Harkirat Singh. That's it. Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know what? It's always been my experience in this committee that members are given a latitude to get to the point. It's the same thing in the House. And if Ms. O'Connell wants to keep cutting me off before I can make my point, then we can have a very long committee meeting today, or we can just get through what I'm about to say and move on in this discussion. Standing Order 116 says, 2A, unless a time limit has been adopted by the committee or by the House, the chair of a standing, special, or legislative committee may not bring a debate to an end while there are members present who still wish to participate. And further, B, a violation of paragraph A of this section may be brought to the attention of the Speaker by any member. I was almost done.
Ms. O'Connell.
Chair, he is trying to relitigate a ruling you already ruled on. In fact, the whole issue was him wanting to speak to this motion, and now he's refusing to speak to it. So if the Conservatives would like to justify why they don't want these 3 members to come, then that's fine. But I would like the relevance, and it's very disrespectful in your ruling, Mr. Chair, that you gave him the opportunity to speak on the main motion, and now he's not doing it.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just take a little step back. B, a violation of paragraph A of this section may be brought to the attention of the Speaker by any member, and the Speaker shall have the power to rule on the matter. If, in the opinion of the Speaker, such a violation has occurred, the Speaker may order that all subsequent proceedings in relation to the said violation be nullified. Now, this committee study that we've been having on the issue of Indian foreign interference is important, and I want to continue on with this study, but I just think it's important because there was so much confusion in this committee over your initial ruling, and I do appreciate the fairness that you brought when you changed that, is that actually if we had gone forward with a recorded vote on this motion while there were still members, and I take you at your word that you didn't see or didn't claim to see, Mr. Chair.
Lloyd, I've already ruled on this. Please move to the substance of the motion.
I've been talking about India. Thank you, Mr. Do you recognize me, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I've been talking about the motion. I talked about the fact that we almost had a recorded vote on the motion. This is clearly on the substance of the motion. The fact that we almost had a recorded debate so that members couldn't have a debate on this. I appreciate the fact that you have, rescinded your initial ruling that you said you didn't see anyone on the speakers list, and I do appreciate the fairness with which you have conducted this committee. You can get quite bumpy at times, Mr. Chair, but I do appreciate that you took a step back there and that you've let members have the opportunity to speak.
It's for Ms. Dancho. She wanted to know the standing order. It's 11-2 in regards to order and decorum and repetitive, the repetitive questioning. Chair, at some point, you'd have to rule for the member to either get to the relevance of the motion, which they are avoiding speaking about because they don't want to invite these 3 witnesses, a Conservative colleague of theirs, they're filibustering. If he has nothing relevant to say to move to the motion, then I would suggest you move to the next
There's
matter.
not a floor for a debate.
Relevance is point of order.
Well, you've said it like 5 times.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, then get to it.
Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was just extolling your virtues to this committee, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I do appreciate you changing your ruling because the fact is that we couldn't have actually any debates or any actions that we took after a privilege motion, if the Speaker of the House had indeed ruled that my privileges were violated, which I believe they would have been if you had continued, would have nullified the important work of this committee that took place afterwards. So it was really for the sake of this committee that I just clarify this very important standing order point so that we don't waste our time, because as I said, this is a very important issue. One thing that's very interesting is we've had all of these meetings, and I feel like there's been a real lack of coordination. I've heard very interesting testimony. We've heard from members of the Sikh community who have raised very serious concerns about their safety in Canada. We have these allegations of electoral interference, and we brought Mayor Patrick Brown last week, who actually I think shed a lot of light on the fact that these allegations did not have any impact on the Conservative leadership race. And it just feels like at every one of these meetings, the Liberals, instead of wanting to talk about the broad issue, which is of deep concern to the Sikh community and to all Canadians, frankly, that a foreign government would interfere in any way in our country, especially in a criminal way, when we're seeing that Canadians are being killed allegedly by agents of a foreign state, that we seem to be going down this very narrow path. Like it's like the Liberals are like a rock climber, and they found this very tiny little ledge that they can attach their fingers to, and we're going down this rabbit hole while ignoring this very broad issue of the concerns of the Sikh community over their safety. So to illustrate what this little toehold, that, or I don't even think it is a toehold, is that allegedly my colleague, the Honourable Michelle Rempel-Garner, was working on the Patrick Brown leadership campaign, and I believe this was during 2022. And during that time, it was a very tumultuous time in Alberta. Jason Kenney was the premier at the time, and he went through a leadership review. He won 51% of the vote in that leadership review, but chose to step down. And that was a very tumultuous time. I know there was a lot of people in Alberta politics who were thinking about how they were going to fill that vacuum. And my colleague, Michelle Rempel-Garner, I'm proud to be a colleague with her, was thinking about throwing her hat in the ring to succeed Jason Kenney as the premier of Alberta. And because of that it's a very serious undertaking to run for the leadership, because it's not just that she would become the leader of the UCP party, but that the leader of the UCP party would automatically become the premier of Alberta. So you can imagine, Mr. Chair, how serious of an undertaking that would have been for my honourable colleague, Michelle Rempel-Garner, and the ability of her to do that while also co-chairing Mr. Brown, Mayor Brown's leadership campaign. I like to think I'm a hardworking member of this House, but to co-chair a federal leadership campaign while also running your own provincial leadership campaign, I don't think there's any person in this room who could credibly claim that they could do both of those things at the same time. And so it's very clear from Mayor Patrick Brown's testimony that we had last week, and the words of my colleague, the Honourable Michelle Rempel-Garner, that she ceased to work on the leadership campaign of Mayor Brown so that she could pursue. In the end, she did initially pursue it, but did not actually follow through with her run for Premier of Alberta. But I think that's a very credible, and that's frankly a true analysis. But we have the Liberals here who are trying to stake their claim on the idea that somehow the Consul General of India relayed to Michelle Rempel-Garner that they were unhappy about a terminology that Mayor Patrick Brown was using in his campaign. And that certainly, Mayor Brown certainly didn't think that crossed the threshold, although I did note that last week he said that if there was actual people being intimidated and not buying memberships to support him, that would cross the threshold. But none of that has actually really been, there's not been any evidence provided at this committee. That happened. And so now we have the Liberals who are just proceeding with, every little sliver that they can get. We're getting a new meeting, and yet, and this is going to go on forever. And what we really need to do is take a step back at this committee, because we have a tremendous amount of work that we're doing. We still have Paul Bernardo and the study of the corrections, transferring the notorious killer Paul Bernardo to a medium security prison. That report has not been finalized yet. That's something we started over a year ago. We had the auto theft report, which we could have actually completed. We could have gotten to it now. Very, very importantly, we could have gotten to it, and yet we're dealing with this ridiculous motion to invite people when they could just invite them themselves. And so I just think that we're going down this road. We're overly politicizing this issue. And that's actually, I think Mayor Brown made a good point about this, is that he was even reticent to come to this committee, and that's why he was summoned by the Liberals, was because he felt that this Liberal government was politicizing this issue, and so he didn't want to come. But he did respect the will of the committee, and he did come. And so I think we don't need to go any further down this path. And I think we need to talk about the real substantive issues about, especially the alleged criminal activity that has taken place in Canada, the intimidation of members of the Sikh community in particular. I mean, we just saw it in the House last week. I don't know if you saw this, well, actually, you were there, Mr. Chair. I saw it in the House. One of your own members, after a unanimous consent motion was put in the House, another member of your party came into the House and said that he was threatened in the lobby, in the government lobby, by members of your caucus, Mr. Chair. So other members of the Liberal caucus are threatening other members of the Liberal team over this issue. And I just think that's highly concerning. I'm not sure if the member is going to be bringing forward a privilege motion in the House, but I can tell you that if any person in this House, and thankfully I've never had to endure this myself, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chair. I've had very collegial relations in my 7 years here in the House, but when I saw the member for Nepean come forward in the House and say that he had been threatened by members of his
Point
own
of order,
caucus.
Chair. Point of order.
Ms. Damoff?
To relevancy, we're debating a motion to have 3 witnesses come on to the committee, not about anything that's happened in the House. If we're going to go down that road, let's talk about how the Conservatives were intimidating the NDP during a vote. So can we stick to the motion about having 3
folks,
witnesses come?
Thank you, Ms. Damoff. Mr. Lloyd? No, Mr. Lloyd, again, I ask you to stay on point. We're discussing a motion to invite witnesses. I'm going to put this out there to the committee itself. Again, we can withdraw the motion and just invite the witnesses, which is what I said initially as well. Sure. If you guys are okay with that, we can just invite them. And we can move on, because I know, Madam Michaud is shaking her head, and I really do wish to get to the auto theft study. Again, we have a small sliver to be able to. Okay.
So with my remaining time, am I recognized, Mr. Chair?
So we're going to withdraw the motion. Is that okay?
Yes. But I need to relinquish the chair, the speaking position.
Point of order.
So,
Chair, you've offered up a solution.
And I want to accept your solution. I just want an opportunity to speak.
Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that offer and take you at your word, and so I move that we adjourn debate. They can do whatever I can't.
Sure.
I can't move that on a dilatory motion. I can't add qualifiers. But
The motion can be withdrawn. It doesn't have to go into adjourn debate.
that's just the way I thought it would be done most cleanly. So
It can be withdrawn with unanimous consent. Do we have unanimous consent to withdraw this motion?
okay, do we have unanimous consent that we withdraw the motion?
I see thumbs up, so we're okay. We're going to withdraw that motion. I would really like to move on to the auto theft study. We will invite those witnesses. Thank you.
Chair, wait, I just want to be crystal clear. If we
Ms.
give
O'Connell.
unanimous consent that you'll be inviting these 3 witnesses.
We will definitely be inviting these 3 witnesses. Thank you.
Okay, then we're fine with that.
Okay.